but beginning next month, during the month of June, we will go back to our regular meeting arrangements, which will be our work session here in the multipurpose room the first Monday of each month, and then the third Monday will be our regular session in chambers on the other side of the building, where we will begin to allow in-person public comments like we have normally. But the meeting tonight, we have just members of the board and a few staff in the room with us. So persons that are interested in giving public comments, either on the public hearing that we have scheduled tonight or during informal public comments, have several options available to them. One is to come to the governmental center, and we have cameras and microphones set up in our regular chambers where folks can deliver public comments. They also have the option of emailing to public comment at cabarruscounty.us, and then they may also call in on a conference call number, which is 704-920-2023, and use the PIN number 1234. Our meeting is being broadcast live on Channel 22. It is also available on our web page in live stream form as well. So we try to make provisions for everybody to participate that has a desire to. So first on our agenda tonight is the approval or correction of our minutes, and you all have a copy of those before you. So do I hear a motion in regards to our minutes? Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Do I hear a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes, and we move to the approval of the agenda, which you also have a copy in front of you. So do I hear a motion to approve the agenda, including the changes on page 43? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. We are very happy to have with us tonight our youth commissioner from Cox Mill High School, Tisha Abdul. And so we are delighted to have you with us tonight. And we move now to our recognitions and presentations. And first up from Department of Human Services is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day Proclamation. And I think we have Anthony Hodges virtually to make that presentation. It might take us a minute to find him. Hi.
Yeah, good evening, Commissioners. I apologize. My computer dropped out right when you were coming to me, so I apologize for that. So
No
hopefully
problem.
I'll make it through here. I do appreciate your time tonight to go read this proclamation. It is the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day Proclamation. And whereas Cabarrus County seniors deserve to live safely with dignity and as independently as possible with the supports they need. And whereas elder abuse is most often defined as any act that harms the senior or jeopardizes his or her health or welfare. And whereas eliminating abuse to older persons in each community is
Gosh, I think Anthony's connection has timed out again. So I'm going to pick up on that for him, and if he comes back, I'll let him finish it. Whereas eliminating abuse to older persons is each community's responsibility, and whereas Cabarrus County is concerned about the risk to our older residents who suffer from neglect or are victims of financial, emotional, or physical abuse, and whereas all our residents should watch for signs of abuse, such as physical trauma, withdrawal, depression, anxiety, fear of family members, friends, or caregivers. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners for Cabarrus County, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim June 15th as Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Cabarrus County and encourage everyone to commit to build safer communities for our elderly residents. And do I hear a motion that we adopt this proclamation as read? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And that proclamation passes unanimously. We are delighted to have Kelly Sifford with us from Planning and Development for Construction Standards, Proclamation of Building Safety Month. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you. So this is, May is Building Safety Month, and we wanted to recognize the building safety staff. And so we have crafted a proclamation for you. Whereas Cabarrus County is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and economic value of the homes, buildings, and infrastructure that serve our citizens both in everyday life and in times of disaster, and whereas our confidence in the structural integrity of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the dedication of public servants such as code enforcement officials, as well as architects, engineers, contractors, and many others in the construction industry. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of the community's largely unknown public safety staff, our local code officials, who enforce safety codes of local and state agencies and have saved lives and protected homes and businesses. And whereas the bedrock of a thriving community is a safe and resilient construction, Building Safety Month 2021 encourages the appropriate steps everyone can take to ensure the safety of our built environment and recognizes that the implementation of safety codes by local and state agencies has saved lives and protected homes and businesses. And whereas the construction industry, which is essential and critical to the economic well-being of our community, and continue to work during unprecedented times and found creative ways to serve the citizens of Cabarrus County. And whereas each year, in observance of Building Safety Month, Americans are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire protection bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Cabarrus County Commissioners does proclaim May 21st as Building Safety Month.
Thank you. Commissioners, do I hear a motion to adopt this proclamation as presented? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. 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 All opposed, no. And that motion passes. Thank you. I think that our code enforcement folks are some of the people that sometimes when they tell us we can't do what we want to do, we don't always like it, but then when we never hear about these accidents happening because of their efforts, we certainly appreciate them. So thank you goes out to all of those folks. Next on our agenda is a proclamation in recognition of J.N. Robinson Band, and Commissioner Strang is going to read that one.
Yes, this is the Pride of Robinson Marching Band proclamation, whereas it is brought to the attention of the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners, Pride of Robinson Marching Band has been invited
That's a
to
good
the
point.
8th Annual Pearl Harbor Day Pearl Harbor Memorial Parade, and whereas the Pride of Robinson's Marching Band received the invitation to attend after participating in the 2019
Thank you. Do I hear a motion that we adopt this proclamation as read?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. And for those of you following the agenda carefully, you noticed I skipped one. That was not intentional, it was an accident. So now we go to item 3, a proclamation for Memorial Day 2021. And we are happy to have Tony Miller to present this proclamation. And I think Tony is with us remotely or virtually. And I do not see him on the call, so I will go ahead with that one as well. Memorial Day Proclamation. Whereas our ancestors shaped the structure of our political system, laid the groundwork for higher discoveries in science and medical research, started long-lasting traditions that enrich our heritage, and fought in wars so that future generations would have freedom. And whereas it is important to cherish the memories of our friends and family members who have died and to remember their contributions towards making our lives better. And whereas the veterans who fought and died for our country helped preserve the freedoms and rights guaranteed to all people under the U.S. Constitution. And whereas on Memorial Day, Americans remember the enormous debt of gratitude we owe to our veterans who have lost their lives in the defense of freedom and the pursuit of peace, and we reflect on the past and renew our patriotism so that we may continue to live in freedom and seek peace so that our veterans will not have died in vain. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners do hereby recognize May 31st, 2021 as Memorial Day 2021 in Cabarrus County and urges all residents in the county to take time on this special day of remembrance to honor those who have sacrificed and died to improve our quality of life and strengthen our nation. Do I hear a motion that we adopt this proclamation as read?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we adopt the proclamation.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And that motion passes. Did you have a,
Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Commissioner Shields.
Do a comment. You move pretty
please proceed.
You know, as we get older and you think about things like this, you know, Memorial Day in particular, Veterans Day, and you think about the freedoms that we enjoy so freely. Every one of us are free, and it's because of the men and women who put themselves in harm's way. Many years ago, I lost an uncle in World War II, and I had one missing in action in Vietnam up until here a while back. And I mean, it's so, I'm a military family. I love what this country stands for, freedom. I wish that we could get that type of momentum going back into schools. And you talk about Memorial Day, for most kids, unfortunately, it's just another day. And they don't know what Memorial Day means. They don't know what Veterans Day means. And I don't mean that to be critical towards the schools, but it's just not taught. And I wish that more people understood what freedom is and the price that people pay for it. And I'm one proud person. I'm glad that I did what I did in 1972 and served my country. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of being a veteran. I'm proud of being a veteran. But anyway, you know, I'm glad that we could approve this Memorial Day proclamation. And my desire is that more people will pay more attention to the price that we pay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, thank you. We appreciate those comments. And I always enjoy the Memorial Day ceremony in Kannapolis and Veterans Park, which I think has had to be canceled due to COVID for the past couple of years. So that is one of the many things that we will look forward to getting back to next year. Next on our agenda is informal public comments. I think we do have some folks in chambers tonight for informal public comments. Before we proceed to those, I'll ask our clerk if we have any emails or if we have anyone on the phone line also. And I think we do. Okay, we do have someone on the phone line.
I have not received any emails for comment and, Dr. Vaughn is going to give you people in the chamber.
Okay, excellent. So while we are waiting on Todd to check that phone line, if the sergeant in the meeting chambers will go ahead, we'll accept the first person for public comment.
Hi.
Hello?
I got some comments I'd like to make. I like for the DSS to have more oversight. I like for social workers to have cameras as they enter people's houses. I think that's more important sometimes than police having cameras. I think they taking kids out of houses, they need to show why and have proof. And I'm asking for Jay White to step down from DSS as of now. And I ask that my case be heard more streamly. I mean, it's either right or wrong. And excuse me?
I think there was an echo in our system, not that they have that corrected now.
Okay. And I just like everybody to pray for Erica Sue Anderson's case, that Jada Sue Anderson comes back to my house fastly. They won't tell me right or wrong, so they don't know. And they've been, Richard Cook up here, he should tell me something by now. But anyway, DSS need more oversight. They don't need to come and take kids out. I've lived at this place 12 years, come swap my house. No charges, swap my house and take my kid out. And I need it taken care of. I mean, I'm sad. I'm a victim. And I'm not treated like one here in my own county where I've lived 12 years at the same house. I bought a house here. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have other persons in chambers for public comment? Two more. Okay, thank you. And I failed to state at the beginning, but please state your name and address before you begin your comments.
Good afternoon. My name is Norman John McCullough, otherwise known as Warren C. Coleman. Many people in the community have gotten to know me. I am celebrating Mr. Coleman and his many achievements. I also come in the name of pioneer John Paul Barringer. If you're from Cabarrus County, I would hope you would know who that is. I have been researching this family and the various activities for over 8 years. I'm currently working with the mayor of Concord with respect to the apartments in the mill. You may know that there are going to be 152 apartments, and I hope and I pray that they turn out to be affordable apartments. As you all know, the people in this community need affordable apartments. So I've been here in Concord. I live at 2315 Montfort Avenue. I've been here over 9 years. I've been teaching at the college, Rowan Cabarrus Community College, and I am a person of high interest to this community. Many people know me, especially in Concord, and I'm just loving Concord. I love Cabarrus County. And if you were refer to the Independent Tribune of yesterday, you would see an example of the work that I'm doing in trying to bring all aspects of this community together. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time. And you can always contact me if you have any further questions. Oh, by the way, I've written a book by Mr. Coleman, so you can also refer to that for additional information.
Great. Thank you, Mr. McCullough. And I think we have one more public speaker.
Hi, how y'all doing? I just want to touch base a little bit on my father, Jerry Anderson's, what he was commenting about DSS. Y'all have an elder abuse day coming up, and I heard y'all were all in favor. What about the mentally ill? You know, this all happened at DSS because my sister was mentally ill and not treated properly. If only we had somebody to take care of mentally ill people, not try them alone in court without representation. What kind of stuff is that? We cannot have that going right across the street where you're building a bigger court system. Mentally ill people cannot stand trial on their own, guys. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other persons in the chambers? Thank you. And did we have someone on the? Oh, okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, we move now to old business, and the item there is the renewal of the non-emergency transport franchise agreement with American Transmed. I think we have had 2 readings of that, so tonight I would entertain a motion to adopt the franchise ordinance of the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners, granting a franchise to operate non-emergency services to American Transmed after review and revision by the county attorney. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And we move now to our consent agenda. Okay, I apologize. We do have someone on the phone for informal public comments, so we will go back and receive those comments now.
Okay, sir, go ahead.
Yes, good evening. My name is Ronald Hodges. I live in Harrisburg, 3719 Ayrshire Court. I'm 87 years old, and I would like you to consider opening the senior centers as soon as possible, based on the new guidelines set forth by Governor Cooper. And I appreciate you taking that into consideration. That's all.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to call. Okay, we will move now to our consent agenda. Items listed under consent are generally of a routine nature. These are items that we have discussed at length at our work session meeting 2 weeks ago. We do that in order to give the public an opportunity to contact us if they have any questions or concerns or comments about it. Commissioners also have the opportunity to pull items off that consent agenda if they feel it's something that needs to be discussed further. So, and I have received no notification of that tonight. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And we move now to new business. From Planning and Development, we have proposed text amendments which were discussed at our work session, at which time we set a public hearing for those text amendments. And so at this time, I will open the public hearing and invite anyone to the microphone that wishes to speak on these proposed text amendments. And I will ask our clerk at this time if she has anyone that has emailed or is on the phone or in our chambers to comment during the public hearing.
Either on the phone, email, or in the chamber for this.
Okay. And I think do we have Susie Morris with us?
Yes, sir, I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, and Susie Morris from the Planning Department did make that presentation at our work session. So if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask of her at this time. And if not, I would entertain a motion to adopt those proposed text amendments. You're exactly right. We need to close the public hearing first. So there being no one here to speak during the public hearing, I now close the public hearing and would entertain a motion to approve those, and I will get the exact wording here. A motion to adopt text 2021-00001, proposed text amendments to Chapter 2, Chapter 4, Chapter 6, and Chapter 13. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And if anybody would like to hear all those read again, I'm sure Susie would be happy to do it. But it doesn't appear that that's necessary. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. And we
Thank you.
move now.
Sorry to bother you. Jimmy has not read it in front of the board for a second time. Legally for this contract, it needs to be read again.
So we need to go
So we need to go
back to
back.
the American Transmed.
He's gonna read that for us, and then we'll just revote.
Okay, very good. And that is going back to the item regarding in old business, regarding the renewal of the non-emergency transport franchise agreement, and we do need to officially have a second reading of that. I apologize. I felt like I'd heard it several times before. So Jimmy, we're now ready for you to read that again, and I'm showing on my screen that you're now unmuted. Welcome.
All righty, Mr. Chairman and Board, thank you. I am having some technical difficulties, I think, as we have experienced with a few previous virtual attendees. So I am on my phone, and you would just, with this device, you would just have my voice. Is that acceptable?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, thank you for this opportunity for the second reading. Whereas Cabarrus County regulates the provision of vehicles for hire in Article 82 of Cabarrus County Code of Ordinances and North Carolina General Statute 153A-250, including franchises for non-emergency ambulance service. And whereas those services have been provided by American Transmed according to the standards defined in Section 82-52 of the ordinance. And whereas the Board of Commissioners have held a hearing as required by Section 82-53 of the ordinance, and whereas based on information submitted by American Transmed and information submitted at the hearing, the Board of Commissioners made the following findings. A, the public necessity and convenience requires the proposed ambulance service. B, each sum of ambulance and its required equipment have been certified by the state of North Carolina as acceptable for the type of franchise requested. C, American Transmed and its officers or partners are responsible persons to conduct our work in the proposed business. D, only duly certified emergency medical technicians as employed as operators and attendants by American Transmed for non-emergency service franchise. E, all other requirements of Article 82 and all other applicable laws and ordinances have been met. Now, therefore, the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners resolves that, one, the Board of Commissioners grants a franchise to American Transmed for the operation of non-emergency ambulance services for the period of July 1st, 2021 to June 30, 2024. The terms of this franchise shall include the following. The geographic boundary for this franchise shall be the entirety of the county. Any change in ownership or management of American Transmed shall terminate the franchise and shall require a new application for and new franchise award. The franchise may not be sold, assigned, mortgaged, or otherwise transferred without the approval of the county and finding of conformance with all requirements of Article 82. The terms of Section 82-57 of the ordinance shall be included in the franchise agreement as they relate to termination, suspension, or revocation. The Board of Commissioners authorized the county manager to negotiate and execute the franchise agreement with American Transmed, not inconsistent with this ordinance, after drafting and review by the county attorney. Approved after readings on 2 consecutive regular meetings of the Board of Cabarrus County Commissioners, which was April 19, 2021 and May 17, 2021, pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 153A-46. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Lentz. We appreciate, and I apologize again for the snafu on that. So, once again, we will vote on this. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to adopt the franchise ordinance of the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners, granting a franchise to operate non-emergency services to American Transmed after review and revision by the county attorney. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, we're okay with the public hearing coming before the second reading?
Based on what I heard him say, I think.
I heard that too, but I
Yeah.
wanted to clarify.
Yeah, I'm waiting on Lauren to give me, yes, thank you for keeping us on track, Lauren. We appreciate her very much. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And that motion passes for the second time. And we have taken care of item G1, and next up is item G2. And we are happy to have Emery Ortiz from our library system to talk about a budget amendment. Yes, there's Emery, and she is muted. Doesn't show muted, but we can't hear her.
Oh, no.
Now we can hear you. Now we can hear you.
Good, all working. Okay, so the budget amendment I have for you this evening is related to our inclusive internship initiative. This was something we were awarded last year, and I brought it before the board in January of last year, and it was approved. However, COVID did move the program to this year. So we weren't sure if it was actually going to go through. This was something awarded by the Public Library Association. And basically, in a quick summary, they give us grant funding to hire a local intern, a teenager, that is going to help us plan a program or service that helps us bring more inclusivity to the community. So the budget amendment is for $3,500, which is the amount that the Public Library Association will refund us to basically cover the intern's salary.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Emery? Okay, hearing no questions at this time, I would entertain a motion to adopt the budget amendment as presented by Emery. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes, and we thank you for that, Emery. We move now to item G3, American Rescue Plan Grant Awards, and we are delighted to have Rodney Harris to talk with us about that.
Good evening. So we are looking for the board to approve accepting these grant awards and then the associated budget amendments and project ordinances that go along with that. So I did have a couple slides that we wanted to walk through just to give you an update of the various funding sources for these. So we'll start with the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which we've talked quite a bit about. In January, you accepted the award of $6.5 million, just over that amount, and those funds have to be spent by September 30th of 2022. The action tonight is to accept what is ERAP 2, which is additional funding that came through the American Rescue Plan, and that is just over $5.2 million. And so we would have on hand a total of $11.7 million. The good thing about ERAP 2 is those funds can be spent all the way through September 30th of 2025. So we have quite a window to spend those funds. And for the public, in terms of eligibility, this is focused on renter households with an income not exceeding 80% of our area median income. And then at least one or more individuals in that household have to either qualify for unemployment or have experienced a reduction in their household income, incurred significant cost, or experienced a financial hardship due to COVID-19. And then the last component is demonstrating a risk of experiencing homelessness or housing instability. There are a number of ways for folks to apply for this program. So the first and the preferred method is to do it online, and that is at erap@cabarruscounty.us. And then the second is in person. So they can access the application online or at any number of these sites, whether it's a public library, the governmental center, our human services center, or our veteran services office. And then this is just a quick snapshot. As of last week, we had 351 that were pre-qualified, 244 that were in process at our human services agency. We've talked about some staffing challenges we've had over there. We have a backlog, some going back as much as 4 weeks. We have made progress in adding staff, so we're hopeful that we will begin to chip away at that. The total requested is just under $3 million to date, and about $333,000 has gone out the door. So as you can see, only $3 million requested. We have about $11.5 million that is available. We'll certainly increase our outreach in the community as we get this backlog taken care of. Any questions on ERAP?
So what happens when September? You said 22, didn't you?
So
So
the
that's,
first round of funding.
I was thinking 21,
September
okay.
of 2022.
Surely by then, there'll be no leftover, would you think?
At the current trajectory, we would have money left over.
So
and
what
it
would
be
happen at that time
returned
with that money? So it goes back, but you
back to
still
the
have
Treasury.
the other.
We would still
to
have the
September of
other
25, okay.
5.2 million, correct?
Any other questions? I certainly have mentioned this every public opportunity that I've had to the Board of Health, to our Community Health Service, and others, encouraging them to spread the word. I just feel like there are people out there that need help that maybe are not aware of this, and hopefully, if we get the backlog cleared up and the staffing issues, which,
Yep.
as every news report I listen to indicates that everybody is having staffing issues, so that's not unique to us, that we'll get these funds where they were intended to be, to help people that are in a bad place.
And we certainly want the public to know that we are working through that backlog. If they have submitted an application, it is being reviewed, and they will hear back. So we've had some that have thought that because it was taking so long, they submitted a second or a third application.
Right.
We are working through their applications as quickly as we can.
Yeah. In this program, are there any provisions for, when we specifically talk about renters there, any provisions for homeowners that, with mortgages that may be facing default on their mortgage for the same reasons?
Yeah, not in this particular program. There are some state dollars for mortgage assistance, and then we're about to talk about a next subject where mortgage assistance is an option. for the county.
Great, great. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before we move on, Rodney, can you tell us what is some of the main reasons for the holdup, other than personnel?
It's
I mean,
staffing.
is it the people that are making the applications are not filling them out properly? Or a trail of verifications and a lot of red tape tied up in trying, because I mean, time is fleeing, guys. We got $11.7 million there, and there's people out there hurting.
Yeah.
How long it's been since the money's been available? 60, 90 days, that kind of thing. And we've only had a third of what is out there requested. And of that, we've only got a tenth of it processed. We've got to get on that, guys. That's just all it is. I don't know how to tell you to do it, you know, but we've got to get on that though, because people are hurting and they need those funds. They're not doing us any good laying around here, you know. We need to find a way to streamline that where those people can get those funds.
And what we've heard from our human services folks is it's a combination of factors. So the staffing is certainly a challenge, but it is also documentation. So the federal requirements require a lot of documentation. They have to get the proper documentation before they can approve them, so that takes time. And then the other one is you have to get a response from the landlord or the utility company. And in some of those cases, those contacts are not going as quickly as they had hoped.
Is that explained in the application though, pretty much where anybody can understand it?
It is, yep.
Yeah, well, a lot of times we were our own worst enemy sometimes, you know, and that goes for people that's applying. They need to pay more attention, I reckon, to, you know, what's required of them up front, and then maybe it won't take quite so long. Thanks.
Yeah, so Rodney, the utility companies, they were reaching out to us as soon as the program came out. Has that slowed down now, or is it still just?
Those have primarily been registered as vendors, so we don't have as much of an issue with those. It's more the landlords getting response. You know, they need to give us their W-9 and all of that information.
And can the landlords themselves qualify?
No. It has to be the tenant.
Okay.
And the other issue is, so if we have a non-responsive landlord, by the rules, we have to give a certain amount of time before we can do a direct payment to the tenant. And so we have to make 3 attempts over the course of, I think it's 21 days, before we can move on to the next step of paying directly to the tenant. So there are some hoops we have to jump through. Now, I will say, ERAP 2 that we talked about has slightly different rules for that $5.2 million, so they are allowing you to go straight to a direct payment. I will tell you, Human Services, Karen specifically, has some concerns about that, but they have loosened the rules to try to make it easier to get through the process with that second round of funding.
Are you seeing where some of the landlords themselves don't want to? Are they just not interested, or is there some kind of stipulation on them if they accept it that way that is causing that?
Yeah, there's not any stipulations or regulations on them that we're aware of, but we have had some reluctance on their part to participate.
Which makes no sense, because they're the ones that are, to get them paid. But, I mean, yeah, you never know why something would get hung up.
It might be one of those classic examples of, this is the federal government, send me your W-9, I'm here to help you. I think there may be some reluctance or resistance from some folks. And having been involved in some of the SBA programs recently, I can personally attest to the fact that they change the rules frequently. And the interpretation of the rules change frequently. And the information that they request changes from beginning to end too. So I can certainly sympathize with folks that are going through the process. And so hopefully we'll have adequate staff to assist them in that process, because I probably would need some help filling out one of the applications. So.
And the last thing I would say to Commissioner Shu's point is, you know, we're doing at a staff level everything we can to expedite this process. So in the last couple of weeks, we've added a 40-hour intern from the UNCC MPA program who's going to be wholly dedicated to this program for the next 12 weeks. We've put a retiree from finance over there, trying to get staff that we can count on and that will show up every day.
That's great. And Rodney, I appreciate you doing that. And I mean, I know how I would be if I was in your situation or Karen's situation. I'd want to hurry up and get this done so we can move on to something else, because it's time consuming.
Sure.
And there's no money built in there for that. It's just another thing. I mean, they may be a little bit for, this, like you said, the staffing and all of that, but when you get everybody that's involved in this, it takes up a lot of time. And so the money's there to get it out quick as we can in the hands that the people that need it, so they can spend it, do what they go to do, which will further help the economy too, so.
Yeah, and you think we have a lot of staff up there in Human Services, but they still have their other jobs to do. And so they're trying to do that. Now, some of the supervisors are overseeing the program along with Rodney, but, so it's not that we're not moving people around. The volume of their work already is more than some of them can handle. So then to add this on top, it makes it even more difficult, so.
Well, I can't say it's unfunded, but still, yeah, and that's another whole issue there when you think about it. It's hard to find people these days. I mean, all these people around here begging for employees, they can't find nobody wanting to go to work. And of course, that's the product of the federal government right there, you know, and that's a whole long story. We won't go into that tonight. But anyway, you know, on this, I know DHS, they do an excellent job up there trying to serve the people of Cabarrus County. And when nobody predicted COVID was going to come, and nobody knew how we were going to have to handle it on a federal level, much less a local level. But I think considering all the variables, all the circumstances, you know, we've come through it, and we're still not there yet, but we're getting there. And, you know, I know that the vaccination program, Patty had her second shot last week, so she's good to go. And I'm glad to see that. That went so well. And how that the Health Alliance worked through with the Health and Human Services. So I mean, it's just a great place to live, guys. And, you know, I know you're doing all you can, and I appreciate all that you have done.
And I think you had another item.
So switching gears to a larger dollar amount. So the American Rescue Plan had state and local fiscal recovery funds. We've talked about these in the past as well. We got the official guidance last week. So it's $42,043,458 that will come directly to Cabarrus County. So that will be a payment made to us from the Department of Treasury. Half of that will be sent, we think, this month, and then the balance will be sent next year in May. So you're looking at roughly $21 million payments each time. These funds have to be spent by December 31st of 2024. And then there obviously will be quarterly and annual reporting requirements that we have to follow. And then lastly, just to give you a sense of potential uses, there's one item that is not reflected here, and that is revenue replacement. We're fortunate, as we'll talk about in a few minutes with the recommended budget, to not have significant revenue losses that need to be offset. But there are a number of categories that we would still be able to use these funds for. So public health, obviously, whether that's mitigation efforts or vaccinations, medical costs that we incur as a county, or staffing. Economic impacts is very broad. So that could be helping households, industries, workers. We talked earlier about mortgage assistance would be an option. There's also some considerable flexibility around particular census tracts, lower income census tracts, where you have some additional flexibility to do things like affordable housing, et cetera. Infrastructure, they specifically have set out broadband, water, and sewer is eligible expenses. We do have some limitations as a county with the broadband part of this, just because of the state statute around what counties can and can't do around broadband. But sewer and water would be an option for these funds. And then the last one is premium pay. And this would be for county employees. Potentially, it's meant for lower wage workers, so it's select positions. And it can be up to an additional $13 per hour for those employees, up to a cap of $25,000 for each employee. So those are the options that have been made available to us for how these funds can be allocated. And so we'll talk obviously more about this in the days and weeks ahead about putting a spending plan together that gets to what we want to use these funds for over the next 3 years.
Excellent.
So about the plan earlier, I do have a question about it. I know that a lot of people have been struggling with COVID-19 and how it's damaged their financials and everything. But some of my friends who are not homeowners, whose parents are not homeowners that are struggling, I don't think they're aware of this opportunity. So what's currently being done to kind of advocate for this opportunity to make it more known to more people? Or is it something that's completely new?
No, it is a terrific question. It's one we talk about almost daily. So we have done, to date, very minimal communication from a county perspective. So we've done the press release. We've talked to key organizations in the community about this opportunity that have the contacts we think are necessary. We have held back on significant outreach because of the backlog.
Okay.
And so our next steps with our communications group is to do some extensive outreach once we've got the backlog under control.
All right, because I know that a lot of people aren't necessarily watching, the television, or they're not really aware of the newspaper. So I was just wondering, what other outlets are happening. So.
It's definitely on our radar and
right.
for next steps.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, that wraps up this one.
Okay, well, thank you for that information, and I'll also add that word of mouth is very important. So all of us sharing with folks when we have an opportunity, as well as folks that may be watching the meeting tonight. And occasionally we get a little press coverage, so that may be something that they would pick up on as well. And so, Commissioners, at this time, I would entertain a motion to accept the grant awards as were described and to adopt the associated budget amendments and project ordinances. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And we move now to item G4, and that will be the presentation of the fiscal year 22 recommended budget, and our county manager will make that presentation.
So the time you've been waiting for, next year's budget. So please know before we start here that our employees have been working since October, I guess, and going through their current budgets, seeing what do we need for next year, what do we need more of, what's going well, what's not going well. Just know that this is not a month project. They've been working for several months now. So with that, Honorable Chairman and members of the Board of Commissioners, it is my honor and privilege to submit the fiscal year 2021-2022, or you'll hear it referenced as FY22 recommended budget. Staff prepared this budget in accordance with the laws of North Carolina, guided by the Board of Commissioners' strategic priorities. Last year, we presented a recommended budget in the early stages of a pandemic. We projected a significant drop in revenue due to COVID-19, particularly in sales tax and property tax. Even with these projected reductions, we knew that the strategic investments were necessary to meet the growing demand for county services. As a result, we invested in our public education partners by increasing county paid supplements for educators, sustaining school operations, and funding new facilities. We invested in new positions, including social workers, sheriff's deputies, and paramedics. We also invested in essential building projects, including the new courthouse, a new EMS headquarters, and upgrades for Franklin Park. These investments enabled the county to better identify and meet the growing community needs for which the county is responsible. The 2021 Cabarrus County Community Survey found residents have a positive perception of the county, with 92% saying they are satisfied with Cabarrus County as a place to raise children, and 87% reporting that they are satisfied with the overall quality of life. Our situation improved dramatically over the past year, as more than 55,000 or 26% of our residents are now at least partially vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine. During that same time, revenues increased by nearly 22 million or 8%. We still experience great need. Many in our community are struggling to make ends meet. Our future requires a careful balance of making needed investments and being mindful of how those investments affect taxpayers. We believe that the FY22 recommended budget successfully strikes this balance. The recommended budget increases funding in critical areas while maintaining the property tax rate of 74 cents per $100 of assessed valuation for a total general fund operating budget of just over $297 million. The recommended budget continues the board's commitment to improving public education by investing in Cabarrus County schools, Kannapolis City Schools, and Rowan Cabarrus Community College. The budget calls for an increase of 0.5% to the county-paid local supplements for educators employed by Cabarrus County and the Kannapolis City Schools. The Board of Education for each district could elect to increase the supplement further through other funding. Because statewide pay is standard, the local supplement helps attract and retain teachers. The budget also includes funding to maintain school operations. Example, locally paid positions, teacher supplements, and building upkeep for all three education partners. In total, these investments cost an additional $4.4 million annually. The Cabarrus County School District continues to have a backlog of deferred maintenance projects totaling nearly $200 million. This year, the district will receive more than $40 million in one-time federal funding. The county and the district have agreed to the county using $3.4 million of education funding increase to address deferred maintenance projects over the next 3 fiscal years. In FY22, projects will include security camera replacements, roof repairs, playground replacements, and security vestibule construction. The recommended budget also invests in departments and partners that create and sustain a healthy and safe Cabarrus. Over the past year, the Cabarrus Health Alliance, or CHA, helped save local lives. In response to the COVID-19, the organization educated, tested, and vaccinated our community. The recommended budget funds merit increases for CHA staff and provides additional funding needed for the school nurse program. Funding will also allow CHA to add an on-site well water inspector to ensure water systems are safe and reduce the case backlog, a school health director to oversee and lead the school nurse program, which provides a dedicated nurse at every public school, an epidemiologist to provide consistent surveillance of community health data. The budget also funds 13 new positions in our critical public safety agencies: construction standards, emergency medical services, fire services, and the sheriff's office. The new positions include deputies to investigate crimes and patrol our community. Excuse me, here we go. An EMS assistant director to oversee logistics and operations and maintain high-quality responses. A fire operations chief to oversee Squad 410 as they continue to support our volunteer fire department's response. And code enforcement officers to complete residential and commercial property inspections in a timely manner and help maintain appropriate inspector workloads. The pandemic increased demand for services such as food and nutrition assistance, child welfare, and transportation. In addition to these already challenging workloads, many human services team members added important responsibilities, such as administration of the Emergency Rental Assistance Program and other important programs. Human services staff frequently carry caseloads that result in burnout and job turnover. To continue exceptional service delivery, the recommended budget adds 15 full-time and 1 part-time position to improve work satisfaction and better meet the needs of our growing community. Positions include social workers, social work supervisors, and income maintenance staff, among others. County staff members work to ensure Cabarrus County government is accountable, transparent, and customer-focused. Our dedicated and hardworking staff are the true definition of public servants. The 2021 Cabarrus County Community Survey highlighted the exceptional work of county employees who ranked 21 to 34% above the national average in customer service areas. The recommended budget recognizes their services by including funds of a 1% cost of living adjustment for all employees and a merit increases of up to 4% based on their individual performance. The recommended budget also adds 10 full-time and 1 part-time internal support positions to strengthen the delivery of the county services. Positions include IT staff to manage county technology, fleet personnel to maintain vehicles and equipment, and a chief procurement officer to oversee county purchasing activities. The FY22 recommended budget allocates the resources necessary to build our future. The budget includes $37.2 million for general fund, from the general fund to the Community Investment Fund, or the CIF, for current and future debt payments. The CIF continues to provide a dedicated and sustainable source of funding for capital projects that positions us well to meet our capital needs in the years ahead. The county's pay-as-you-go or pay-go program, which uses cash on hand rather than debt, continues to fund a significant number of projects, including $9 million for Cabarrus County Schools to acquire and install mobile units for early college at Rowan and Cabarrus College. Start design work for the replacement of the R. Brown McAllister Elementary School, and complete multiple deferred maintenance projects, including parking lot lights, paving, and flooring replacements. $8.3 million for a wide variety of county projects, ranging from the emergency equipment warehouse and the information technology services, or ITS, relocation to a storage building an additional storage building for fire services. $2.5 million for the Kannapolis City Schools to renovate the tennis courts and the track at A.L. Brown High School, replace security cameras at multiple schools, replace carpet at Forest Park Elementary School, and complete multiple deferred maintenance projects, including playground replacements, roof repairs, and painting. $553,000 for Rowan and Cabarrus Community College to recoat the roof and replace the fire alarm system at the Cabarrus Business and Technology Center, and to replace security cameras at the South Campus. While the county would prefer to fund all projects with cash, the significant and growing capital needs we face requires responsible debt financing to complete essential projects. During FY22, the county plans to issue more than $150 million in debt, including $46.8 million to complete construction of the new Cabarrus County Courthouse, $32 million to construct a replacement for R. Brown McAllister School for the Cabarrus County school system, $17 million to design and build a new public safety training facility, $16 million to design and build a new emergency medical services headquarters, $10.5 million to complete construction of the Roberta Road Middle School for the Cabarrus County school system, $10 million to replace and expand the Cabarrus County Library within the system. That could be one or it could be multiple libraries that need work. $7.8 million for roof replacements at Bethel Elementary, Weddington Hills Elementary, and C.C. Griffin Middle School, Central Cabarrus High School, Concord High School, and to replace the parking and driveways at the Mount Pleasant High School. $6.3 million for design and construction of an emergency equipment warehouse and information technology department office. $4.3 million to design and replace for the Northwest Cabarrus High School for Cabarrus County Schools. That's the new high school. $4.1 million to acquire, design, and construct a new park and/or ball fields in the northeast portion of the county. $4 million to add new amenities to Franklin Park, including a boardwalk and a splash pad. And finally, $2.3 million to acquire, design, and construct a new northeast public safety tower, communications tower, Beyond FY22, the county has numerous planned debt-funded projects, including construction of the new Northwest High School for Cabarrus County Schools, a new library and senior center in the western portion of Cabarrus County, and Phase 3 of Rob Wallace Park, among others. I want to thank the board for your steady leadership during this challenging time. Your support allowed us to provide uninterrupted service during the pandemic. Our visionary staff went the extra mile to implement new technologies, revise service models, and modify facilities. These actions protected our employees, their families, and our community. I'd like to recognize Rodney Harris, Jonathan Marshall, Rosh Khatri, Yesenia Panetta, Ellie Landrum, Wendy Hagler, Suzanne Burgess, and the many other department leaders for their work to develop a budget that is responsive to our community needs. I also offer thanks to our entire workforce for the commitment to the programs and services that make Cabarrus County such a special place. In this year and every year, our people make the difference. Respectfully submitted, Mike Downs, County Manager.
Thank you, sir. Okay, commissioners, you've heard the budget presentation, and you all will very shortly have your own personal copy, which is only,
It's only a couple hundred pages.
244 pages for you to read and study over the next few weeks. In addition, a copy of the budget will be filed in the office of the clerk to the board on May 17th and will be available for public inspection at the Cabarrus County Governmental Center during regular business hours. The budget will also be posted on the county website, I would assume by tomorrow.
By 9 p.m.
By 9 p.m. tonight. If folks want to look at that, and the address for that will be www.cabarruscounty.us/resources/current-budget. And I imagine you could probably use the search function to pull that up if you didn't catch that address. We will take action shortly to schedule a public hearing to be held here at the Governmental Center at 65 Church Street South in Concord on June 7th at 6:30 p.m. And then, if needed, we can have an additional budget workshop to be held at the Governmental Center on June 10th at 4 o'clock. And then the board would be scheduled to vote on the budget on June 21st. So that's a little bit of a change from the procedure that we followed in previous years. The reason for that change was to create additional opportunities for public input and to give people more opportunities if they want to be involved in the process. So at this time,
We have one more change. We're going to make some more, since we're only doing, we rearranged our budget work sessions. Rodney's going to go ahead and do
quick
do
presentation.
an introduction here, a production, or an introduction of what we just talked about in the letter, if that's okay with the board. Gives you a little bit more detail to chew on, and so.
It is, I believe it's 35 slides, but I will be brief, I promise.
And only,
that's
only
not
20 minutes each.
245 things.
Yes, I will be brief. This is sort of a Cliff's Notes version of the document that Rosh passed out to you. And this is more for the public and the board in providing a visual companion to the manager's budget message. So we're going to cover sort of the revenues and expenditures as outlined, and then we'll walk through the capital improvement plan, and then I will close with the next steps in the budget process, so the public knows where they can participate. So the managers talked about our budget more from a general fund perspective, but as you know, we have multiple funds that make up our total budget. And so this slide shows you that as a combined budget, we are looking at about $393 million for the fiscal year 22 recommended budget. The bulk of that and the focus of this presentation will be on the first two, which is the general fund and the community investment fund. Those make up 92% of the dollars that we have allocated. And so we'll focus our attention on those two funds. And so when we look at the general fund, obviously property tax is the most significant revenue source, and so we are seeing about a 4% growth there. And the only other item on this that I want to call out for your attention is sales tax. As you recall, last year we did a significant reduction, expecting the pandemic to have an impact on our sales tax. That was never materialized, and so our sales tax collections have been really strong. And so you'll see about a 42% increase year over year in the sales tax budget. I think for context, that footnote at the bottom is important, is before the pandemic, we were expecting our sales tax for fiscal year 21, our current fiscal year, to be about 35 million. So year over year, the increase is really only about 8%. So that puts that 42% in a little bit better context for you. And then this just gives you a breakdown of our major revenue sources within the general fund, which obviously property tax makes up 72% of our revenue, and then sales tax is about 13%, and then it goes down from there. On the expenditure side, as you know, we are required to produce a balanced budget, and so the expenditures match the revenues that we just talked about. And so it totals, again, $393 million, with the top two being the most important, the general fund and the community investment fund that we'll cover in the remaining slides. That breaks down in a number of categories that are summarized here, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can see county personnel. It makes up about $104 million of the total expense of that $297 million, and then it goes down from there with Cabarrus County Schools, Kannapolis City Schools, charter school funding, and RCC being a substantial portion of our general fund operating budget. And that is summarized here. And so you'll see county personnel makes up about 34% of our general fund expenses. 30% of our general fund goes towards education and those educational partners that we have. In that personnel increase is a number of items, and so we'll start from left to right. $1.4 million increase is our state retirement, which is mandated by the state, and it changes from year to year. And then also just our county match for 401k that we have as a benefit for our employees. $2.7 million is going towards healthcare increases, and then the second item is new this year. That is a $2 million investment in an Opeb trust, and so that represents other post-employment benefits. These are primarily retiree healthcare costs. We currently have a liability of about $34 million for future expenses that we are expecting, and we have not to date been reserving money for that purpose. And so this is our first step to do that. You will see an agenda item, I believe in June, asking you to do the resolution to set this up. And so we would hope to keep this $2 million investment in there over the next 5 years to make a dent in that liability. And this is something that the rating agencies, as we go out for debt, look upon favorably. So we think this is a good step for the county. And then the last item, as the manager talked about in his message, is about a $5 million increase for new positions, cost of living, merit. Overall, that is a net increase of $4.4 million because a significant number of the new positions are in human services, where they get some additional federal and state revenue that offsets that expense. And so these couple of slides cover the new positions, so you can look at these later in terms of the detail. Only thing I would say here is the majority of the positions are in human services and public safety. Those are the two areas with the most need. And so you'll see the bulk of those 42 positions are in human services and public safety, and what those positions represent. And then this just summarizes the last of the personnel for you. So we are going to be up, if we adopt this recommended budget, to 1,368 authorized positions. And you can see over the past 10 years what that trend has been, and that is consistent with our population growth as a county, as we've tried to keep up with that demand. So this one I want to spend at least a little bit of time on because it can be a little bit confusing. So Within the general fund, we have transfers out to other funds for other purposes. And so these represent transfers to our capital projects fund, which is for projects that are capital in nature. So these are items that school operating reserved was mentioned in the message. That is the $3.4 million that the school is going to use one-time federal money and allow us to use this $3.4 million to cover deferred maintenance projects. The second we talked about last year is we still have one more year before the new courthouse opens. And so we have $2.6 million that will be needed once it opens. In the meantime, we're able to use that towards one-time projects. Annual county deferred maintenance is just regular deferred maintenance projects that Kyle manages for us, and so that's $2.5 million. In FY22, we have insurance and bonds that we do not need the general fund appropriation for that purpose because we have a sufficient fund balance that we can appropriate. So for 1 year, we're going to be able to use that $974,000 to do capital projects, and then in FY23, it'll go back to that original purpose. And then the last is the child care facility we've talked about on prior occasions. The ongoing expense for tuition assistance would be about $275,000. We do not need that in FY22 because we have existing funds. And so we're going to reserve that as a one-time capital expense so that in FY23 it's there when we need it. Again, transfers to other funds. So the previous slide is transfers to our capital projects fund. This covers our transfers to other funds. So the first two are the community investment fund. We transfer out each year $37.2 million. That is revenue that is going into the CIF on an annual basis. The second item is a one-time contribution to the CIF. This is a hedge against any potential downturn on our sales tax. So at a staff level, you always have concerns about how that's going to play out, especially in a pandemic environment. And so when you see a 42% increase year over year, you get a little nervous. Were you too aggressive? And so this $3 million is protection against being short on that revenue source. If we come in at or above our revenue for sales tax, this money would go towards one-time capital projects for next year. And then the last two are the Arena and Events Center and the landfill fund that we have contributions that go over there to balance those funds. We talked about education, and so this just summarizes the additional investments being made in education. I think the one that is of note is the significant capital investment that this budget reflects. And so that is 48 capital projects for Cabarrus County Schools, 15 for Kannapolis City Schools, and 4 capital projects for the community college. And we'll talk a little bit more about those. And then this is just to show you that we always keep in mind future expenses that especially are related to capital projects. And so you can see here, if we expand the Mount Pleasant Library, what that cost would be on an annual operating basis that especially are related to capital projects. And so you can see here, if we expand the Mount Pleasant Library, what that cost would be on an annual operating basis. Our Brown McAllister replacement, West Cabarrus Library and Senior Center would be a significant investment, and then obviously the new Northwest High School that would open in 26. So these are some future expenses that are built into our 5-year plan, which leads to the 5-year plan. And so this gives you a sense of where we think we are over the course of the next 5 years from a surplus perspective. And so you can see we are relatively sound at the current tax rate. The lowest it gets is in FY24, and then you will see that revaluation year at FY25 that it jumps up in terms of what we would expect if we kept the tax rate the same. So we'll switch gears real quick. We'll talk about the capital improvement plan, and in order to lead into that, we'll talk about the community investment fund. The revenue sources for that are sales tax, which is dedicated library sales tax. I'm sorry, not library, school sales tax. And then you have the $2.3 million is the lottery funds. And then the largest source of funding is coming from the general fund, and that's from general fund revenue. And so for the fiscal year, it would be about $66 million that would go into the CIF. On the expenditure side, again, we have to balance, so it equals that 66 million. But not all of that is needed in fiscal year 22. So we have about $16.1 million of that amount that is reserved for future use. And so that is where we build that additional capacity that we've talked about for future investments that we need to make. Our actual expenditures in fiscal year 22 are going to be around $49 million. And so this breaks the expenditures down for you, so you can see about 60% of those expenditures are for education, and then 14% are the governmental projects that we do, and then 25% of the budget is being reserved for future use. And then this just shows you, based on our fund balance goal, which is that red line, what our anticipated fund balance is within the Community Investment Fund. And so what you see when we're above the line is the potential for additional projects in 2 years, because eventually we'll be able to spend that down. And the other benefit to that is we can spend it down as cash rather than debt. So this can lower our debt burden in the years ahead. So it's obviously a 5-year CIP, but we're going to only focus on the first column, which is the FY22 recommendations, because obviously FY23 to 25 to 26 can change. So the FY22 is about 181 million. About 21 million of that is cash on hand, which is a substantial investment. And then debt is projected at 160 million. And so of that 181 million, it's broken out into these 4 general categories. And so the bulk of it is going to public safety, which is about 83 million, education, 66.5 million, and then the culture and recreation is 19 million, and general government is about 12 million. And so we're going to go through each of those categories just quickly. Public safety, 83.5 million, 8 projects, and these summarize those major projects, and obviously the courthouse is the most significant among them. And so I'm not going to walk through each of these, but I'll sort of pause for a second and then move on. For Cabarrus County Schools, it amounts to $63.5 million spread across 48 projects. About 48 million is new and replacement schools, but then you can see the other categories that are recommended. I thought this map was helpful, thanks to our ITS folks for putting it together. It shows you the distribution of these projects within our geography. And so the funds as recommended would touch 24 schools across the district. This is some examples of what those major projects are. R. Brown McAllister Elementary School replacement being the largest. Roberta Road Middle School, which is pictured on the left, and then the graphic on the right is the proposed site plan around R. Brown McAllister's replacement. The blue is the existing school, the orange is the proposed location. And then you can see some of the minor projects that are recommended: security cameras, new bathroom partitions, things like that. For Kannapolis City Schools, this table summarizes the recommendations that get to that 2.5 million and 15 projects, and it's spread across multiple schools. The manager's message mentioned A.L. Brown High School, but you can see some flooring replacement at multiple schools, playground replacement at multiple schools. And then lastly, for Rowan Cabarrus, you're looking at $553,000 across 4 projects, and it's both the CBTC and the South Campus that would have projects involved. Culture and recreation is about 19 million for 11 projects, and then the most significant is replacement or expansion of a library branch or branches. And so we've talked about Mount Pleasant, we've talked about the demand in Harrisburg. That 10 million is meant to address some of those potential uses. And then you can see the remaining projects that are recommended. And then lastly is general government, $12 million, 8 projects, the largest of which is the emergency equipment warehouse and the IT relocation project that is pictured down there on the right is sort of a schematic design. And then obviously some equipment being purchased that's needed. So just to summarize the next steps, as we talked about earlier, on June 7th, we will have our public hearing. June 10th will be the next budget workshop and the final budget workshop if that is needed. Budget adoption is scheduled for June 21st, and then we would have our new budget kick in on July 1. And I think I did that really quick.
Excellent job. Commissioners, do you have questions for Rodney or Mike regarding the budget?
And we are going to put this presentation online as well with the budget document in case somebody doesn't have time to read 200-plus pages. They can flip through it. They are not in that book. They will be posted online, though. And you'll send them out to the board. And Lauren will send them out via email to all of you.
Mr.
Yep.
Chairman, I'll make a general comment. And it's been, I'm guessing, maybe 3 years since we shifted gears to create the Community Investment Fund. Does that sound about right?
Actually, this is year 2.
Year 2, okay.
Year 2.
Well, it seems to me, just the quick overview that we just got, it's doing exactly what we had wanted it to do and what Rodney brought to us back then. Trying to clarify projects that we could do and trying to keep the amount of, to debt down, or at least have a handle on projects that we're able to do without borrowing money, which is what we said all along. That's what we want to do. We just, you can't do the cross the street that way. But so, all that being said, that seems like maybe kind of a turning point in how we're going to arrive at the graph that you showed of the 5 years above the line. I mean, that's, to me, and again, this is a quick view, that looks like an awful lot of things that we can do that we're required to do without borrowing money. I mean, that's what that slide looked like to me. I don't know what it looked like to anybody else, but that's what it looked like to me.
I agree, and certainly that is always a more desirable way to go.
And if I could, Mr. Chairman, just to say, our budget director, Raj Khatri, is in the back there. I know we have Ellie Landrum and Yesenia Pineda on the line virtually. They've done most of the hard work on this, so thank you to them for their dedication.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all. And so, unless there are other presentations, I think the next item for us is to schedule a public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 22 budget for Monday, June 7th at 6:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as persons may be heard. And do we need a motion to accomplish that? Yes, and so I would entertain the motion to schedule that public hearing for Monday, June 7th, 2021.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And thank you, Rodney, for that presentation. I think that did a good job of presenting to the public the options that they have to provide input as well. Okay, I think that we move now to reports. First up is to receive updates from commission members who serve as liaisons to municipalities or on various boards or committees. Does anyone have anything tonight?
I just have briefly, I attended the year-end celebration at Camp Spencer for the Youth Commission, as they're now going to be out of school very soon, so all the students received their awards, end-of-year awards. The seniors all received their ropes for graduation, so they were very happy. And the other thing that I would like to say is, just to bring everybody up to speed, Midland Town Council had a meeting last Tuesday regarding the 1,310 homes to be, to be built. The board tabled that decision and is asking for a reduction in the homes in that space, because the lot sizes are very small. And that was a very big concern to the general public as well as the board. So we'll see what they do next month.
Okay, thank you. Any other reports? Okay, any general comments by board members?
I'm just gonna say, Chairman Morrison and I toured the WASAC facility last week one day.
Yes.
And was quite amazed. We started that visit off right because the director out there asked us, do we want to ride or would we want to walk? And I said, I think we'll ride. And after we got done, I'm glad we rode because that was a lot of walking. But you'd be amazed, though. We actually went down and seen the processes of how the wastewater is processed, and then the end result going into the Rocky River. And there was a very distinct difference between the Rocky River normal water, and then when our water feeds into it, it looked better than the water that was in the river before we got there.
That's right.
And so that would, made me feel a lot better. I mean, Mr. Fowler said he thought that it was drinkable at that point, but I don't think I'd be wanting to drink it. But it did go into the Rocky River though, and it was a very distinct difference. And I enjoyed that tour and wanted to let the public know that. And thank you, Chairman Morris, for going with me that day.
Absolutely. It is quite an interesting operation. We take for granted all of those things very frequently, and so it was very educational and interesting for me. I thought about that after we completed that, and I thought, a month or so ago, I toured the landfill with Commissioner Strang, and then the wastewater treatment plant. So definitely covered the bottom end of the results of our living here, and that's something that most people don't think about every day, but it certainly is a part of what our county government and WASAC and our municipalities do on behalf of our citizens all the time that we don't always consciously think about. So I would encourage any of the rest of you, if you have an opportunity, to check it out. But Commissioner Shue is correct. It is a massive operation that covers quite a bit of property and quite a bit of ground. And so you take them up on that offer of a ride. It's a smart thing to do. Any other comments from board members? Okay, hearing none, we do have need of a closed session tonight. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session to discuss matters related to pending litigation, acquisition of real property, and personnel as authorized by North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3, 5, and 6. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. We are now in closed session, and we would like to thank everybody from our television audience for joining us tonight.